James. Brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah." In the world of searching and not finding, we are positioned to find. In a world of more questions and less answers, we are not positioned to find, but to get answers. We can't be on this mountain and not find. However, that's not my subject for today. It is when we have found that we're going to call our brother. Are you going to be that Andrew, that when he has found the Messiah, he will run and call his brother? Are you going to be that sister, that when we have found the Messiah, you are going to run and call your sister? For in our African environment, we are so comfortable in when we have found or discovered treasure, we like to hoard it, keep it to ourselves, but not share it with our sisters. I would like to encourage you this morning that after you have found that treasure, in this instance, who is the Messiah, run and seek for your brother and share the good news. Amen. Thank you.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this message you have given us this morning. We thank you for this assembly. The fact that we are all gathered here and our number is a sign that your grace has sustained us. Please continue to bless the proceedings of the day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Isn't it nice to be all together? It's been a long time, that we haven't had an assembly with everyone together. COVID really threw us a curveball, and it's nice to see things starting to come back to the normal. So I want to welcome all of you to the assembly this morning. As our scripture reading was talking, that when we find, we must share. And you are here to learn. You are here to learn in multiple domains, not just in accounting, not just in theology, but in life. And it is our desire that through this journey on this mountain, that you will learn not only information that helps you to be a good professional, but also traits and attitudes and understandings that shape your character and help you to make good choices for the rest of your lives. And we hope that you will share what you learn with others as well. So I want to welcome each of you here this morning. It's so nice to see the hall filling up. I want to welcome everyone who's watching online as well. Welcome to our assembly this morning. I pray that you'll be blessed. I want to ask all the new students. So who is studying in their first year? Would you stand up? I want to give you a special warm welcome this morning to our new students. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to invite all the new students, you can be seated. As you are leaving, please go past and fetch a little, what do you call these things? A little voucher from Manosipo at the entrance. There are vouchers for all of you who are here today. Collect your voucher that looks like this from Manosipo, and then you can use that to go and get refreshments after assembly at the cafeteria. But also for the new students, please make sure to go and see her as well, because we have bags for you and we have a kit for you. So those who haven't collected yours yet, please make sure and go and collect that from Manosipo. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Letsedi, who is going to go through the announcements.
Morning. I'm not flattered at all. I'm not flattered at all. Good morning. I need also to add, it's good to resume this normal. You know, we've not done this in a long, long time. Also, extending our welcome to our students who are connecting online. But mine this morning is very short. I would like Renee to come up front. Renee, I'm not going to ask you to stand, but I want you to come up front. You guys read from my notes. How do you know what I'm going to do? Did you tell them?
No.
Why were you clapping? Why? She's there? Okay, okay. And she looks great also.
Thank you.
She has been with us for the last 24 years. She started on the 23rd of April, 1999. And I think some of you were not born when she started working here. And she will be finishing this month after 24 years. And Renee, thank you very much for your commitment, your dedication, your smile all the time, and making this place. I know you spend half of your life in this institution, and thank you very much. It's not often that we have people spend their lives in this institution. We're going to miss you. And I know you also send us, you entrusted us, you entrusted the education of your daughter. And she graduated 2018, BA Communication. Her name, Amaroy Dilamain Stevens, BA Communications. And she also graduated in 2015, her certificate in Office Administration. She did not only work for this institution, but she also trusted the education that we offer here. And thank you very much, Renee. We're going to miss you. This place is going to be different without you. You know, Helderberg is about people. It's not about buildings. Once people leave, I mean, they leave. We can't even replace them. No, we don't replace people. We can't replace people. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very, very much for your life and for your service, for your commitment.
Thank you.
Okay, today's presentation is going to be delivered by Dr. Bruce Webb. Now, Dr. Webb is not a stranger to Helderberg College of Higher Education. During his training at UCT many years back, he was a frequent visitor on our campus. He's traveled extensively since then, both internationally and within South Africa. He's worked in Johannesburg, in KwaZulu-Natal. And he's currently placed now at Tygerberg Hospital, where he's continuing with his specializations. And he has an interest in lifestyle medicine, in understanding how the choices that we make influence our health. He's also very passionate about neuroscience, understanding our brain, and this very interesting link between this mass of fatty substance, which has just billions of connections and is the most intense and complex organ that we have, which consumes more than like 20% of the oxygen that we are breathing in, and yet both shapes and is shaped by our behavior, our attitudes, and our choices. And so he's studied extensively, he's worked in this field extensively, and he's continuing in his specializations, and he's here to share with us. Because just like Andrew, he has a passion for the Lord. And when he discovers the beauty and we're studying about reverence and respecting God, fearing God. And as he studies this and as he develops that deep fear and respect for the Lord because of the beauty of his creation, he's willing to share. And I want to thank him for being willing to share with you this morning. And I hope that you will not only listen, but that you will understand. And that you will not only understand, but that you will apply. Because that is what true education is about. So please welcome him and pay attention to what he has to say. Thank you, Bruce.
Can you help me with that connection? Morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be with you. As Conrad was saying, these are familiar halls for me. When I did medicine, I actually stayed on campus because I so wanted to be part of Adventist education. It's a privilege to be here. And so while I studied at UCT, I used to live here and travel in and out, rush back for choir. So this is my home as well. So I'm really happy to be with you. We're just trying to, oh, there we go. We sorted. Thanks, brother. So this morning, I believe Conrad asked me to share some stuff that about what I've been studying and what my passion is. And my passion is an area called functional medicine, and particularly as it pertains to and affects neuroscience. As a precursor and introduction to what I want to share, you are your brain. Your mind, your emotions, everything is seated on the fabric, the physical structure of your brain. So today I want to talk to you about your most valuable asset. And I really pray and hope that you will hear. I came here for a reason. Didn't just come to impress you with fancy slides. I came here because this is a very important topic. And I pray that you will hear and understand and apply, as Conrad said. So your most valuable asset, is it this home in Camps Bay? Or Clifton? This one, they say, rents for 250,000 Rand a night. That's R1 million for 4 nights in this location. 250,000 Rand a night. There's another one. How about the Ferrari? Is this your most valuable asset? This is if money was no object, I might get a Bugatti. This is a Bugatti. And it's called a Bugatti Divo or something or other. But can anybody guess how much this car is? 83 million Rand. 83 million Rand. I want to tell you this morning, you are made for more. And inside each of us is a longing for more, and a longing to be part of something bigger than ourselves. You are made for more. The Bugatti will never fill that void. It might be fun, but it won't fill the void. And I hope to highlight what the void is about a little bit. So what is transcendence? Does anybody know what transcendence is? I'm sure many of you do. It's also a theological concept. Transcendence is our need to be part of something bigger or above ourselves and our little world. And I want to tell you this morning, if you don't, you might not be aware of it, but inside each of us is that need to be part of something bigger than the preservation of our little kingdom. And for as long as we believe that we are here just to make ourselves comfortable and to pad our nest and to live with ease, because most of us define success until it becomes a conscious thing. I hope I'm singing to the choir this morning. But until it becomes a conscious thing, we think success means I come home, I don't owe anybody anything. I can buy what I want. I can put my feet up and do nothing. And unconsciously, we think that's what success is: comfort and ease and freedom from responsibility. And I want to tell you that it's not. We all know, many of us who've done the psychological sciences will know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this basically says we have an ascending hierarchy of different needs as human beings. That we start with the physiological. If I'm hungry and starving, I'm not going to hear very well your philosophy. So you need to meet my basic needs. But ultimately at the top, there's that transcendence we were speaking about, that need to be some part of something bigger. And you won't get away from it. You might deny it, but it's your need. Your need, my need, is to be part of something bigger than yourself. This is a quote that I appreciate from the book Education. Higher than the highest human thought can reach is God's ideal for his children. Godliness, godlikeness is the goal to be reached. Before the student, that's you and I, we're all students. We never stop being students. Before the student, there is opened a path of continual progress. He has an object to achieve, a standard to attain, that includes everything good and pure and noble. He will advance as fast and as far as possible in every branch of true knowledge, but his efforts will be directed to objects as much higher than mere selfish and temporal interests as the heavens are higher than the earth. To restore in man the image of his maker, to bring him back to the perfection in which he was created, to promote the development of body, mind, and soul, is the work of redemption. And I want to put to you that that's what Christian education is about. I respect Conrad's knowledge and passion for Christian education. Yeah, it's about body, mind, and spirit development. And because that's who we are. We are complex organisms that are not just physiological. This is what God seeks to do in his people as part of the process to prepare them for his return. So I want to put to you this morning as I start, your need is not a life of opulence, ease, and comfort. Your need is to buy into and accept God's desire and plan for you, to be part of something bigger than yourself, to connect with and connect for him. This is a book, I don't know, most of us would have done the lesson for this last week, the lesson quarterly, referred to this book, and I really appreciate it, and it caught my attention. It was called A Quest for More, living for something bigger than yourself. Listen to this line. There is woven inside each of us a desire for something more, a craving to be part of something bigger, greater, more profound than our relatively meaningless day-by-day existence. Perhaps that's why we get hooked on politics, sports, or a myriad of causes that give us something to fight for. We simply weren't constructed to live only for ourselves. We were placed on earth to be part of something bigger than the narrow confines, the narrow borders of our own survival and our own little definition of happiness. The desire resides in each of us, and it is called transcendence. To transcend is to be part of something greater. For the mind and the soul, as well as for the body, it is God's law that strength is acquired by effort. It is exercise that develops. In harmony with this law, God has provided in his word the means for mental and spiritual development. The Bible contains all the principles that men need to understand in order to be fitted either for this life or for the life to come. And these principles may be understood by all. And this I had to share because it's one of my favorite quotes. I think I've probably shared this in most of the sermons I've ever preached. This quote really speaks to me. Man created for fellowship with God can only in such fellowship find his real life and development. Created to find in God his highest joy. He can find in nothing else that which can quiet the cravings of the heart, can satisfy the hunger and thirst of the soul. You were made for God. I was made for God. You were made to find your highest joy in relationship with Him. So what is your greatest asset? The thing that you will need to succeed and influence. Your health. Our physical and spiritual elements are so powerfully integrated that they really cannot be separated. I want to put to you this morning that your greatest asset is not the Bugatti, the Ferrari, the Clifton Bay property. It's your human brain. And your brain is your organ of influence. The impact that you and I have on this world is determined by the integrity of what's going on between our ears. And I want to tell you this morning, I really hope you'll take this message away. You need to take seriously the health of your brain, because your mind is an expression of the physicality of your brain. So this is your very greatest asset. If you want to impact and influence the world, if you want to succeed in every area that matters the most, this will be a priority for you. So particularly that part of the brain, the frontal lobe, is the area that receives a lot of focus in neuroscience. This is where our executive function, decision-making, conscience, reason, intellect reside. This is what distinguishes us from our cats and dogs. When our dog feels like doing something, he does something. When we feel like doing something, we need to be governed by a higher reasoning power. And God has given us this higher degree of frontal lobe development to govern our choices and our actions. Sorry, I think we've lost signal there. Give me 1 second. Perfect, thanks. So most of us know this passage extremely well, but I'll say it again regardless. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. The world teaches us that we are our own. We can do with this physical substance whatever I like. The Bible teaches us something different. This body and mind and brain were entrusted to us. And we're called to offer it a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Don't conform, but be transformed. And how are we to be transformed? By the renewing of your mind. I want to put to you, as well as you know this text, your mind will never be renewed until you renew your brain. Your mind won't be renewed until you look after your physical body. Your body health determines your brain health. Your brain health determines your mind health. Your mind health is where your spirituality resides. To have a renewed mind, we need a renewed and robust brain. To have a robust brain, we need a healthy body. So, as you're sitting there thinking, and maybe hopefully meditating on what I'm saying, the net result of what's going through your brain right now is a consequence of the neurochemistry that's happening, the synapses that are firing, the chemicals that are being released. And the efficiency of that process is determined by your physiology, what's happening with your hormones. What did you have for breakfast? The amount of inflammation in your body. All those factors. So there's this body-brain-mind connection, and you cannot get away from it. The brain is your organ of influence. The mind is the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and to feel, the faculty of consciousness and thought. So can you see that the mind is like this abstract concept almost? It's hard to define, isn't it? Because it's happening on something that's physical. And that's what I'm really talking about today, taking care of the physical so that we get the best expression of that mind. So something that's key to understand, sickness and health are not an absolute. You're not either unhealthy or healthy. It's a line. It's a continuum. And where you fall on that line is determined by the balance of factors that you are letting govern your life. Some factors will be helping you towards health, and some factors have a significant detraction force on your health. And if you want to be smart, if you want to get the best out of your life, you need to become intelligent about what this system requires to run efficiently. And you need to apply that in your life. You need to decide that. It's not going to happen by accident. So look at those factors on the mental illness side. Mental illness, friends, is rife these days. Depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia. And there are genetic bases for some of these mental health problems. But neuroscience is now moving to a different focus. Whereas before, we somehow saw these as independent concepts and diseases, we're now realizing that they represent disorders of brain function, where the brain is not working properly. And like I'm saying, there's a whole spectrum of dysfunction of the brain. And so look at those factors on the right that negatively affect you. Mental illness, brain chemistry, family history, family stresses, traumatic life events, unhealthy lifestyle, physical illness, substance abuse, social and cultural expectations, unsafe environment, wellness factors, mindfulness, supportive family life, psychotherapy, medication, healthy lifestyle, etc. Your emotional stability, your intelligence, your relationships, your concentration, your memory, your intellect, your education progress, your financial choices, life choices are all affected by the health of your brain. When you are not mentally at your best, you're impulsive, you fly off the handle, you're what we call emotionally labile. And that's one of the signs that on a spectrum that can be part of mental disorder. And the point is, we live in a society where up to this point it's been okay to have a liver problem. It's been okay to have a kidney problem. But it's not being okay to have a brain problem. And yet the brain is a physical organ. And so this is what we've got to accept, that these organs, the liver and kidneys and gastrointestinal tract, are all trying to create an environment so that your brain can be healthy. That's the whole point. I can't run through life and say, my liver's fantastic, but I can't think straight at all. I mean, that's missing the point entirely. So listen to this. When our brains are broken, we are ineffective for God and his work of influence through our lives. Now, brokenness is a very generic term. I'm just using it loosely. Our brains are our organ of influence. When our brains are broken, our relationships suffer. We hurt ourselves and we hurt others. And as the youngsters say, that's not cool. It's not cool when our problems and our challenges impact those closest to us. And this is something that we need to own and fix. Because let me tell you, most of us are broken in some way or another. There's work to be done. All of us are broken. Not most of us, all of us. And God offers us healing, but he offers it within a certain set of constraints. There's rules, there's laws of your physiology, and you can fight them. But when you start to work in harmony with them, that's when you can have health. So without the best possible and most robust brain and body health, it becomes difficult to show up in all the areas that matter the most, to be the best version of yourself, and to participate in God's higher purpose for you, to walk with and influence for him. I hope that's become clear. The people with the healthiest brains form the best relationships. You want a good relationship? Fix your brain health. Seriously. People with the best brains get the best relationships. Have you ever made that connection? It's true. You want a good relationship? Start with your brain. Make the best decisions and have a competitive edge. If you want to succeed in all that matters in life, you better learn to highly value and nurture your brain. Why this picture? This is about gravity. I can go through life saying I don't believe in gravity. I think it doesn't exist. I'm going to jump off a cliff. Not going to end well. I want to put to you that there's laws of gravity, equivalent to the law of gravity, that run your physiology. You can fight them. You can deny them. You can say they won't affect me. Jump off the cliff and you'll see that they will. And you want to be intelligent. You want to be smart. You want to really succeed in all that matters. Learn what those laws are. And I can tell you, and live by them. I can tell you we live in the information era. I don't need to tell you that. You know that. There are tons. The amount of information on health on Google is scary. Now, there's a lot of rubbish on Google, of course, as well, but there's no reason to not have information anymore. And so neuroscience, all that stuff, physiology, hormonal balance, nutrition, it's all available. You need to become intelligent and apply it. There's another picture of gravity. They're acting in harmony with gravity. make the point from another angle. There's Usain Bolt winning the 100 meters. If I say I want to run the 100 meters in 8 seconds, it doesn't look like I'm really built for running it in 8 seconds at the moment. But the point is, if I want to run it in 8 seconds, there's certain things I have to do, isn't there? I can't say I'm going to run the 100 meters in 8 seconds, and then this is what I'm doing on a Saturday night. Pizza. So a wealth of information available. So medicine's moved to a domain of cause and effect. There's different types of medicine. There's acute medicine and chronic medical care. Acute medicine is very good. If you break your hip, your pelvis, your arm, you come to see us in A&E, we can sort that out. We can direct you to theatre, we can sort you out. If you have a chronic medical condition, and we're living in a pandemic of chronic medical ailments, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, cardiovascular disease, strokes, cancer, autoimmunity. Autoimmunity has become absolutely rife. The body doesn't just break down. There are reasons. And we can understand what those reasons are. And now medicine is moving into the area of cause and effect. We're now trying to find out the reasons and treat the reasons. Because if you, for instance, have an autoimmune condition, there's many types: Hashimoto's thyroiditis, inflammatory bowel diseases, all sorts of things. Those are autoimmune conditions. You can manipulate those things with medication. You can try and switch off the inflammation. But if you're not dealing with the precipitant, you're never going to fully win. And that's where medicine is now moving, medicine of cause and effect. The harmonious action of all the parts, brain, bone, and muscle, is necessary to the full and healthful development of the entire human organism. The mind controls the whole man. All our actions, good or bad, have their source in the mind. It is the mind that worships God and allows us to heavenly beings. All the physical organs are the servants of the mind, and the nerves are the messengers that transmit its orders to every part of the body, guiding the motions of the living machinery. So body impacts brain, impacts mind, and then as Conrad alluded to, mind impacts body. If you're constantly in a state of tension and stress, that starts to affect you physically, and they feed back on each other. You can't affect the one without affecting the other. So some facts about the brain. Most of what we know about the brain has been discovered in the last 15 years. I mean, that's a relatively short time. As Conrad said, the brain comprises about 2% of the body's weight, but uses about 20% of its total energy. If I want to leave you with I want to leave you with a few things this morning, but I want to leave you with excitement about what's sitting between your ears. If you can get passionate about your physical and brain health and choosing to act in harmony with the principles that make it work the best, I will have been happy that I came here today, because that's why I came. It's that important. So your brain is actually essentially an organ of electricity. So the brain is trying to produce these electrical currents. And to do that, it needs a certain environment. It's got these membranes. The neurons are surrounded by membranes. And the membranes have these ion pumps in them. And they create a gradient of ions that sit at different levels: potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, chloride. They're all differentially distributed at different levels around the membrane. And these pumps are responsible for maintaining these ion gradients. And when a channel opens, an electrical stimulus is initiated. And that electrical stimulus transmits all the way down the axon of a neuron, comes to what we call the synapse, and we'll get to that now, and then transmits the signal chemically to create another electrical signal. And that's the basic functional unit of the nervous system. That organelle is the mitochondrion. There's been a lot, most of you have done high school biology, a lot of research is now focusing on mitochondrial health. The cells that have the highest energy requirements have the highest concentration of mitochondria, because the mitochondria produces ATP, or energy. And the brain has a massive energy requirement. And we're going to, this lecture is actually part of a series we're doing at the moment at Silverleaf. And we're looking at various things that, from the physiology, sort of from the bottom up, as it were. And you need to look at the fuel source that you're putting in, and what the brain's preferential fuel source is and how that works. But ultimately, the organelle that controls energy in your brain is the mitochondrion. And so a lot of neuroscience is now focusing on the health of the mitochondrion and how we can optimize the health of these organelles. Okay, your brain is 73% water. It takes only 2% dehydration to affect your attention, memory, and other cognitive skills. Caffeine dehydrates your body. Coffee might taste good, but it dehydrates your body. And your brain is 73 or 70% water. Your brain is also very fatty. If you take water out of your brain, 60% of the dry weight is fat, and that fat is polyunsaturated fatty acids. Those are the omega-3s we always hear about. So you need to think, the physical structure of my brain, what is it made of? Well, it's made up of fat. You are fatheads. We're all fatheads. And the reality is that we need omega-3s to construct the physical architecture on which our mind resides. So we need healthy omega-3s. Margarine is not healthy fat. I'm going to tell you, you need to say, listen, what fat am I putting in? Let's be intelligent. This is an example of the law. If it runs on omega-3s, then I mustn't put floor polish in, with all due respect. I must say, because margarine is largely an adulterated fat, and this is not a margarine bashing talk. But I'm saying, think about it. What is the brain made of? Therefore, let's put what the brain is made of in. Doesn't that make sense? Omega-3s, phospholipids, things like lecithin, phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylinositol, a whole bunch of them phospholipids. But you are fathead. The latest estimate is that our brains contain roughly 86 billion brain cells. I think that's a beautiful picture. We're going to talk about that now. Teenage brains are not fully formed. It takes about 25 years of age to get a fully functioning frontal lobe. How many are less than 25 years? Enough said. So what I'm saying is, there's a reason we need counsel when we are young. There's a reason. And the irony of this life, because our lives were never meant to be this short. We live on a broken planet that's in repair now. We make some of our biggest decisions when we're the youngest. And the front part of your brain that is most responsible, that can weigh up things, can reason from cause to effect, matures by the age of 25. So if you're less than 25, be willing to take some extra counsel. It's neuroscience, it's not me. The relation that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When the one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health to a far greater degree than many realize. Many of the diseases from which men suffer are the result of mental depression. Grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust all tend to break down the life forces and to invite decay and death. I want to ask you this morning, I want to challenge you and encourage you. If you're living with grief, anxiety, discontent's a big one, isn't it? Isn't discontent a big one? Remorse. Let me tell you, none of us have come this far without getting some scrapes and bruises. Life on a broken planet is not easy, but we have great news of the one that's restoring things. And that's the offer that we have. But the point is, none of us have come through unscathed. But we have the offer of not holding on to that. Because if we hold on to it, it actually destroys us. Grief, discontent, lack of forgiveness. These things destroy us. Courage, hope, the opposite. Courage, hope, faith, sympathy, love, promote health, and prolong life. A contented mind. Here's that word contentment again. I had the privilege of traveling and working in Ireland at one stage, and there was the statue I've never forgotten. It said these simple words: contentment is wealth. Contentment is wealth. We live in a society that tells us we need more to be happy. It's never going to be enough. If you haven't got the latest iPhone or the latest whatever, you can't be happy. That's a lie. Contentment is wealth. And it's found in one place. So this is the organ we're talking about. This is your organ of influence. If you want to be happy, healthy, successful, have the best relationships, make the best financial choices, make the best choices in life overall, this is what you want to look after. If you don't want those things, then do what you like. I'm being serious. This organ requires deliberate choices to look after. It's made up of the cerebral cortex, and the way that the Lord has made our bodies is incredible. So when something's got to be fitted into a small space, He's created lots of folds. By folding something, you can increase the content without increasing the volume. And so the cerebral cortex is highly folded and convoluted, which increases the surface area, but yet within a relatively small space. So the outer layer of the brain is called the cerebral cortex. The axons of those neurons come out, and that forms the white matter. And that's the functional unit called a synapse. So we said electricity comes along the one. It releases chemicals into that gap between the neurons and then stimulates the next one, and the electricity goes on again. If you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Do not conform. We've spoken about that. So that's a sagittal section through the brain. I don't have a pointer with me, but if you cut your head in half, that's what you look like. And we need to become students of anatomy and physiology. It's no excuse not to know how your body works. And in fact, if you're not taking that personally, you're not going to get the best out of your life. There's plenty of information for all of us to become students of anatomy and physiology. That's the sagittal section. That white strip in the middle is called the corpus callosum. That's the band that connects the two hemispheres. You'll see that bit coming down is called the brainstem. There's the midbrain, pons, and medulla, and that back little thing that looks like a leaf is half the cerebellum that controls your balance and coordination. The brain is an organ of connection. The brain makes connections. I actually wanted to show you a little bit of this. So I think it's going to play, but okay. I think for time's sake, let's move. Oh, there we go.
Imagine this. For quick navigation, your aircraft has state-of-the-art avionics.
I don't think you're going to hear the sound. That's a little video you can find on YouTube about the fact that the brain is an organ of... Oh, there we go. Okay, no, don't worry. I think time-wise we'll skip it. But that's a little video that it illustrates the point of how much the brain is an organ of connection. Just to let you know, the neuroscientists came together and they wanted to analyze how many connections there are in the brain. How does the connections work? They analyzed 1 cubic millimeter of a brain of a mouse. 1 cubic millimeter. That's very small. It took them 5 years to count the number of connections in 1 cubic millimeter of a mouse brain. Just to let you know. So inside your brain, you have these tracts. You have the white matter, you have gray matter, and they're now using different staining techniques to actually illustrate how these connections are happening. So they use the diffusion of water and they use a special scan to have a look, and this is the coloring diagram you get of the connections in the brain. So there's a lovely wiring diagram. Anybody interested in electrical engineering here? If you want an intricate wiring diagram, there's nothing more complex than the human brain. 5 years for 1 cubic millimeter of a mouse brain. You try to go through this. So the brain is a hierarchical structure. The cortex is supposed to control our emotional side. We've got an emotional brain called the limbic system. Our emotions reside in the limbic system, but our cortex was designed to govern the limbic system. When we do things that affect the integrity of the frontal lobe, the hierarchy is upset. If I'm taking things that suppress my frontal lobe, if I'm using alcohol, drugs, watching endless hours of mindless TV, eating lots of sugar, downers, I affect the integrity of my frontal lobe. And then my capacity to run my life from a top-down, controlling my limbic system approach is affected. So traditionally, psychiatry has worked in the following way. If you have a constellation of symptoms, if you say, Doc, I'm feeling low, got low energy, I'm battling to wake up in the mornings, I'm tired no matter how long I sleep, I've got changes in my appetite and my weight, you would go to psychiatrists, and I'm not knocking psychiatry. Psychiatry's been done very well in many ways. They would say, listen, you've got 5 out of 9 symptoms, you've had it for about 2 weeks, therefore you're depressed. And now, unfortunately, now things are moving along. So that's the manual that they used to use, or they still use, called the DSM-5. And this is a good system. It's a good system. But there's, I believe, a better way as well, or an improvement even. And this guy's busy doing that. This guy's a psychiatrist in the States called Daniel Amen. And he's now saying, how can you treat an organ you never look at? How can you treat, so if we're just using the DSM-5, like that I just spoke about, I'm treating you on the basis of a constellation of symptoms. Whereas if I look at your brain, I can say, listen, this brain's over-functioning there, it's under-functioning there, and I target therapy based on what I see on the scan. Doesn't that make a lot more sense? And that's what he started doing. So he's doing these things called SPECT CTs. He had a nephew, and I'm telling you this for a reason, to illustrate the point. He had a nephew called Andrew, and Andrew was this stable little boy. He was very happy. And then over a period, he changed. And the one day his sister, because this was his sister's child, phoned Daniel Amen and said, listen, I don't know what's wrong with Andrew, but he just attacked a little girl in the playground today. And this is just not like him. And he was concerned, and he scanned this little boy's brain, and he found this. So if you look at the brain on a scan, this is a SPECT CT. On that left, on your right side, that's actually the underside of the brain looking towards you. So that your right side is the left temporal lobe. And you'll see there's an indentation on that temporal lobe. And that indentation was caused by a cyst. This little boy had a massive cyst on his temporal lobe. And because this way of treating mental illness was fairly novel, it took Dr. Amen quite a while to convince a surgeon to remove the cyst, because they felt, well, it can't really have that much of an impact. But they eventually did, and he returned to being the normal boy that he was. And the point I'm trying to make is that the physical things that are impacting your brain are going to affect your behavior. The physical things we do to the brain affect your mentation, your mental health, your emotional health. Your emotional health is based on what your brain is doing. Listen to what he says.
Mental illness is it.
Oh, sorry. Can you play it, Ian?
Mental illness is it, right? Everybody's talking about their mental illness, but it's the wrong discussion. The discussion is about brain health. We're the unhappiest we've been since the Great Depression. Suicide skyrocketed, depression, anxiety, drug abuse skyrocketed. Children, anxiety medications like Xanax went up 20% in teenagers. That is a nightmare because it's the wrong solution. And I'm not opposed to medicines. It's never the first thing I think about. It's like, let's get your brain and your habits right, and then we'll see what you need. And more than half the people taking medicine really don't need it. Last year, 337 million prescriptions for antidepressants in the United States. That's insane.
Found it quite funny. There's humor in that. Psychiatrists saying that's insane. And it is. There's nothing wrong with medication appropriately chosen and used. The problem with medication is when it's used first line without sorting out the problems. That's the difference. And I'm saying when you have things affecting your health, go to root causes. Work on the root causes first. If there's a need for medication thereafter, then you can look at medication. And there is a need for medication in mental illness. Okay, so this is a typical CT scan. This is a typical CT scan. As I said, we're now doing these things called SPECT CT. So in a SPECT CT, they inject a radioactive probe that goes to different parts of your brain to see which parts are over-functioning, which parts are under-functioning. That's a healthy brain. You can see on SPECT CT, you can't see anything. Sorry, this thing's, I think, sensitive. Let's just try and get it back. There we go. So that's a SPECT CT of a brain, of a healthy brain. You can see that the colors are all even. There's no gaps or holes. That's what a healthy brain looks like. That's what you want your brain to look like. That's an unhealthy brain. See all the holes? So the scan is showing the areas of over or under function. Would you want this person driving your bus or flying your airplane or taking your liver out? Probably not, eh? And I want to put to you today that unless we deliberate, many of us end up with brains looking like this. And we wonder why people are difficult. So there's a typical 82-year-old on the left side, and there's a healthy 82-year-old on the right side. And the good news, and I really hope you're getting this, the good news is that if we start early, dementia starts sometimes 20 to 30 years before there are signs of dementia. So inflammation, toxicity, neuroinflammation, things that cause a chronic inflammatory process in your brain. These things are the precursors to changes that cause dementia. And if you are cognizant of this and you make the right choices, you can limit your risk. And I mean, look at the difference between those two brains. I can tell you that person on the right lived a very different lifestyle to the one on the left. There's Alzheimer's, there's depression, ADD on the left, before treatment and after treatment on the right. There's an addict's brain. There's another drug abuser's brain, full of pepper pot holes. You want a holy brain? I don't want a holy brain. Alzheimer's, overweight, or sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is a dangerous thing. It's part of a system of conditions called sleep disordered breathing. If you snore excessively at night, if you're obstructing, that can affect the health of your brain. So snoring can be dangerous. It's not just funny or irritating, it can be dangerous. So if you snore excessively or if you stop breathing, you need to get medically investigated. Okay, so there is alcohol a health food? There's a moderate drinker on the right. You want that brain? I don't. How about marijuana? Whose brains are we looking at here? A 28-year-old with 10 years of mostly weekend use of marijuana. Note the decreased prefrontal cortex and temporal lobe activity. What did it say? Decreased what? Prefrontal cortex. What did we say about the prefrontal cortex? Judgment, reason, intellect, conscience, executive function. You want to take out your highest functioning part of your brain? I don't think so. Not if what you, as I said before, if what you want is to run the 100 meters in less than 8 seconds, then your answer is no. If that's not what you want, that's what I'm saying. You hear what I'm saying? Marijuana uses brain on the right, etc., etc. They found that marijuana is obviously is a cannabis, and it's the effect that it has on your body is affected by the quantity of a compound called THC, or tetrahydrocannabinoids. So there's receptors called cannabinoid receptors inside the body and brain, and the THC content is what's affecting, also, to a large degree, what's having the impact on your brain that we've seen. And they found it in the study that the hippocampus, which is your memory structure, was shrunken by using marijuana. But not just that, it wasn't just the hippocampus. You can see on that picture on the right, it's more extensive than the hippocampus. Key concept, and we're nearly finished. People's behaviors are a reflection of what is happening in their brains. I want that to sink in. People's behaviors are a reflection of what is happening in their brains. Areas of over or under function correlate with emotional and behavioral variation. When our brains are broken, our capacity to be effective for God and His work in and through us is crippled. When you fix and optimize brains, you fix relationships and families. This is profound. Expressions of a brain under strain: depression, anxiety, insomnia, emotional reactivity, rage, obsession, fixation, excessive worry, neurosis, poor concentration, poor memory. These are symptoms of a brain that's not happy. A healthy brain sleeps well, thinks clearly, concentrates well, is emotionally stable, has a desire for good food, has an inclination for exercise. Have you noticed I used to work a late night shift when I was in Australia, and sometimes I'd have to come home at midnight. And when I came home, I never felt like eating broccoli, strangely enough. Have you ever noticed that? When you're really tired and your brain is like flat, you feel like Oreos or crisps or something. You don't feel like eating broccoli. You make the best choices when your brain is refreshed and slept. And if you want to make the big decisions in your life, make them in the morning. Make them in the morning. They actually showed that when people go, when they've been on probation, and they go have a judgment made, there are more judgments made in favor of them when the decisions are made in the morning than when they're made after lunch. So, some food for thought. But the point I'm making is that if your brain is healthy, you desire good things. You desire good food. You desire to exercise. Some people say that, because we all know we got to exercise. We all got to exercise, whether you like it or not. If you want to stay healthy, you've got to exercise. Some people argue that when you are healthy, you want to exercise, and that you should wait till you, not wait till you feel it, but I'm saying it's easier when you're healthy to keep in the cycle of exercise. A healthy brain makes good choices, is what I'm trying to say. A healthy brain chooses the best things. What makes a brain unhealthy? Excess and chronic stress. Stress literally shrinks your brain. It actually shrinks your hippocampus, your memory structure. The gastrointestinal tract, your gut, what you had for breakfast, how you're digesting, significantly affects the health of your brain. Inflammation. The brain hates chronic inflammation. Hormonal balance. Our hormones don't decline because we age because our hormones decline. This is an important concept. Why do I have that picture there? The fatter we are, the smaller your brain. Did you know that? It's true. The more excess weight we carry, the more inflamed we are, the smaller our brains become. That's been shown. It's not me saying that. So Daniel Amen, he calls it the T-Rex syndrome. The T-Rex syndrome, because the T-Rex was this massive dinosaur with this very small brain. So what I'm trying to say with that funny point is that we should all be moving towards our ideal body weight. And on that point, I just want to make another point. It's harder for some than others. Don't be judgmental. Don't be condemnatory. There are a number of reasons. It doesn't mean you can't. For some, it's harder based on how your system is at the time. If you're inflamed, if your gut's disturbed, if you're not detoxifying well, if you're eating things that are keeping you inflamed, if your hormones are out of balance, you're going to battle to lose weight. You're not going to lose weight. And there are genes that also affect how well your insulin, how cells respond to insulin. So there's a number of factors that determine how easy weight loss is. But what I'm saying is, you need to try and move to your ideal body weight. And there's ways of doing that. Because the bigger you are, the smaller your brain. So we start out life like this, fit and healthy, muscular. And if we go through the mill of life, sometimes we end up like that. And have you ever noticed how much that looks like some old men? Yeah? So some old men have this, no legs. And why is that? Do you know why that is? Do you know why that is? So we start like this, we end like that. And part of the reason for that is that our hormones change throughout life. As a man ages, he starts to have more estrogen and less testosterone unless he chooses very specifically to prevent that. So our hormones affect how we end up if we're not careful. So you start out life with a metabolism of a Ferrari, and you end up with a metabolism like that, which makes you look like that. So there are things we can do to fix this. Nutrient deficiencies affect the brain, poor quality sleep, being sedentary, head trauma. I'm nearly finished. Your brain is encased in a solid cranium, and inside that cranium, there are ridges like this. So if you look at that picture from the top, that green part is called the anterior cranial fossa. Your frontal lobes are resting on that anterior cranial fossa. Your temporal lobes are sitting in that middle cranial fossa, and your occipital, your cerebellum and occipital lobe are sitting on top of that posterior cranial fossa, the purple part at the back. But you can see that inside lining of the cranium is bony, isn't it? It's got ridges. Does it make sense to bang your head on things? But a good part of brain stewardship is not using your head as a ramming pole for something. Heading a soccer ball. Anybody hit a soccer ball? If a goalie kicks a soccer ball from the other side of the field and it comes towards me standing on the other side, how much momentum is in that soccer ball? There's a lot of energy in that soccer ball. Hitting a ball with your head was not what your head was designed for. And I'm not just talking about soccer. I'm talking about whatever you do, take care of your brain, take care of your head. Don't use your head as a battering ram for anything. When you go mountain biking, use a helmet. So there's this coup and contra coup injury, but we'll talk about that another time. So that's the spec scan of a 12-year NFL player. So if you don't believe me, look at the scan. This was a football player that they scanned compared to a healthy brain. Remember, the brain's like a hard butter consistency, and it's floating in this fluid called cerebrospinal fluid inside the cranium. And if that hits the bones in a hard way, damage. So for a powerful brain, in closing, the brain requires a toxin-free environment with an intact blood-brain barrier, no chronic infections or inflammation, stable fuel supply, I wrote these quickly, sorry, powerful mitochondria, healthy fats for structure, healthy stimulation, balanced levels of hormones, deep sleep with no sleep disordered breathing, nutrient-dense diet with fiber, community connection and purpose, antioxidant protection. It's best done when you do it together. Form a team and say, listen, let's get healthy together. Let's go exercising together. Let's cycle together. Let's choose the best diet together. Your life in retrospect, the quality of your close relationships, your work career path, your success in all that counts, will tell the story of how healthy your body and brain have been. Freedom is not doing what you want. Your choice list or options will constrict. So we think, and this is really in closing, we think that freedom is doing what I want when I want. That's not freedom. The more unhealthy your brain and body are, the smaller your options become. You might not believe that yet, but they do. When you are truly healthy and you're doing things God's way, there's an expanse that happens to your list of choices. You want a narrow life? Don't look after your brain. You want the best out of life? Prioritize this. Health and obedience and submission to God brings openness to many healthy and good and the best and choices and the best options. Sickness and suboptimal health and sin constrict your option or choice list. You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. I beseech you that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. I want to challenge you this morning to seek to fulfill your God-given potential by making the very best choices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I want to encourage you that you take this information, that you make it part of your lifestyle. If you want guidance, I want to acknowledge Pastor Eugene Carolus, who's our Cape Conference Health Ministries Director, as well as Dr. Patsoa. Welcome with us this morning. If you want more information on healthy life choices, please feel free to talk to them as well. I'm going to invite now Josh Martin to come and have our final prayer, and you can run off to your classes and apologize for being late.
All right, let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you love us, dear Lord, and you have given us this opportunity to learn more about our brains and how it functions, dear Lord. I pray that as we go about life, that we might make the right choices, dear Lord, the choices that lead us towards having a healthy brain, that we might be able to function as best as possible. Dear Lord, I pray you may help us make wise choices, when be it friends, studies, careers, whatever the health. I pray that you might be able to just lead us in that direction. And I pray this in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Chris.